Okay, I would just like to welcome you all to this instruction section, office hours and new member orientation. My name is Marjorie Lear. I'm the chair of the instruction section membership committee, and I am happy to have you all here. And also we have Karna Younger, Sara Bengston, and Megan Sitar with us. Karna and Sara are also on the membership committee of instruction section, and Megan is the chair of the instruction section. And I'll pass the mic on to Karna now.
Karna, are you with us?
I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. So thank you all so much for being with us today, and especially Lois for all of her patience and her help right now. So I'm Karna Younger. I'm a faculty engagement librarian at the University of Kansas, and I think for me, probably the best benefit I've received from IS membership is just being able to get out of my own institution and my own kind of comfort zone to meet other people across the nation, really, and to talk about things that we all are committed to, especially instruction. So that is it for me. So I will pass it on to Sara.
Thanks, Karna. My name is Sara Bengston. I am a biomedical sciences and veterinary medicine librarian at Texas A&M University. Also a committee member on this membership committee. And for me, a benefit of IS membership has, similar to Karna, is feeling connected to a community of like-minded librarians. I primarily started getting connected through the ILI listserv. But also, this is a little bit circular, but the other benefit is that being a member allows you to also, it makes you eligible for serving on IS committees, which has also been a huge benefit to me as well. So I'm going to pass it back to Marjorie.
Hi, if Megan is with us, I'd like Megan to introduce herself as.
Sure, I'm happy to. This is Megan Sitar. I am the chair of the instruction section, and I'm currently director of Connected Scholarship at the University of Michigan Library. I've been a member of the instruction section and active in the instruction section since the beginning of my career, around 2005, and I share all of the same reflections on the benefits that Marjorie, Karna, and Sara were able to share. As I've moved on in my career, the other things that I've appreciated about it is staying connected to new professionals and understanding the changing landscape of instruction, even as I get further away from being on the front lines in a management role, being able to learn what people are doing at their other institutions, people in positions that span from, as we heard, biomedical sciences to first-year engagement, but everybody has a shared interest in pedagogy and instruction and working with students, and it's a joy to be part of that community.
Thank you so much, Megan. And I'd also like to say that I think that Megan is definitely the expert in the room regarding instruction section. So with questions that we aren't able to answer as a membership committee, I'd like anyone to please feel free to jump in. And Megan, please share your knowledge with us as we go along. And we really appreciate everyone being here to share ideas and questions. So I think we're ready for the next slide. So today we want not to do a lot of talking at you. We want to hear from you about what you want to learn and talk about regarding instruction section. So Karna is posting in the chat, what is it that you would like to learn about IS? And we have some ideas here and content that we've put together. Some of the options for discussion today, understanding better the structure of IS as it relates to ACRL, learning ways to stay up to date with what's happening in the instruction section, finding out ways to actively engage and participate in our new all virtual environment for IS, and exploring resources for professional support. So those are some of the things we can talk about, but we really want to hear from you what your questions are and what you're most interested in so that we can focus on that and really engage you in what you're interested in. So we'll just give you a minute to enter some ideas in the chat, and then we'll get started. This is great. Thank you so much for your responses. It sounds like a couple of people are interested in active engagement opportunities, the structure of IS, how to get involved in committees, and this is good timing because that season is opening and we can ask Megan some more about that. Trends for active learning networks. We can talk about that with professional support resources. So I think since a couple people are interested especially in understanding IS and the structure of instruction section, we could start with that and then also move on to active engagement opportunities. So yeah, we can move on to the structure slide. Thank you. So ACRL, as you may know, is a division of ALA along with 10 other divisions such as RUSA and others. Instruction section is one section within ACRL, and you may be a member of the instruction section and other sections. There are 16 other sections. Within the instruction section, there are a variety of committees, and a lot of the information that we're sharing is available on our website, and we'll be navigating there to show you more information. But there are standing committees, including the membership committee, which is presenting this webinar, but many other committees that do work and produce resources for the profession. There are also task forces within the instruction section, diversity and inclusion, document review, and the Building Virtual Community Task Force, which is a new task force focused on developing ways to engage members in an all-virtual environment. A little bit more about instruction section. The ACRL membership is more than 12,000 members. It's the largest division in ALA. IS has around 4,000 members, and it's the second largest section within ACRL. ULS, University Library section, is the largest, but instruction section is much larger than some of the other sections in ACRL. So just a bit about how IS leadership is organized. There's an executive committee chaired by currently Megan Sitar, a vice chair Susanna Ang-Ziskin, and past chair Miranda K. Hensley. And then there are other members on that executive committee. These are elected positions, so you can nominate yourself or another person for these positions. And then there's also the advisory committee. Yeah, that's great. Let's move on to the next slide. The advisory council actually includes the executive committee members, but also the chairs of committees and task forces, as well as the vice chairs of committees and task forces. So if you were chairing a committee within the instruction section or vice chairing, you would also be a member of that advisory council. And there are many other representatives who are members of the advisory council. As we go along, I didn't mention this, but please do feel free to chat any specific questions you have. Okay, we can move on to the next slide. Okay, so executive committee has various responsibilities, and Megan Sitar is the leader of the section as chair now, coordinating with ACRL as the division. Also, Susanna isn't with us today, the vice chair, but she is making committee appointments for the next year. And I wonder if Megan could take a moment and talk about just the open process for volunteering for a committee, just briefly.
Absolutely. So the form for volunteering for ACRL committees opened on Monday, and I'll put a link to it in the chat. I believe the deadline is perhaps February 15th, something around there. You'll see it more clearly outlined on the website. But when you go to that volunteer form, you'll see a list of all of the committees that you may volunteer for. I would encourage you to choose more rather than fewer. In the past, and almost every year, we have more volunteers than we do have slots. We did a really good job last year and the previous year of creating more opportunities by adding slots to committees and creating some of these new working groups. As we go virtual, we're finding new types of work that we want to do together and routinely have spun up groups throughout the year. So while this is the opportunity to get assigned to a committee during the regular appointment cycle, I would encourage you to pay attention to ILI, and you will see sometimes that we are creating a new task force mid-year and looking for volunteers. Or for example, on the communications committee this year, we wanted to have a group focused on improving the accessibility of our section's publications. And so we did a call for folks who had expertise and interest in doing that work, and we're able to create a subgroup mid-year. So those are some really great ways to begin working with the section. We also have slots on each committee for a secretary role, and we tend to assign these to folks who are new to committees and who have an interest in kind of dipping their toe in, and they serve in a role of taking minutes and getting involved with the leadership, and that's often a path to becoming the vice chair or chair of the committee. I think that's all I want to say about that. Oh, one more thing. In the list of committees that Marjorie had shown, some things like those task forces you won't see on the volunteer form, or you may see them but not see, but find that people are just being reappointed from the previous year. We expect 2 of those 3 committees task forces to continue into next year. On this list too, we're taking away our conference program planning committee. This year we will do an online program along the same time as ALA annual, but we decided that wasn't necessary going into the following years as a virtual section, and we're seeing all of our committees producing really valuable online content throughout the year. Additionally, we're taking the awards committee and we're splitting it into, I can't remember if it ended up being 3 or 4 different committees, because that work has become so complex, and we think it would benefit everybody involved to have separate groups working on that. So that opens up more opportunities for volunteers as well. And I'll stop right there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Megan, for that information. Again, if anyone has questions about that process, you can feel free to reach out to myself or to Megan. And my contact information, Marjorie contact information, is on the last slide of this presentation. So please feel free to follow up with a question now or later. So I think we're going to move on to the next section, which we're interested in, but research is about being actively engaged. And
Marjorie, can I interrupt for just 1 second?
Oh, yeah.
I just saw a note from Alyssa about how she saw all the meetings listed on the IS website, and I wanted to also encourage folks, as instruction section members, you're part of an ALA Connect community where you should be seeing open meetings announcements from our committees. Those are truly open meetings, and so if you're interested in the work of membership or communications or any of those committees, you as a member are more than welcome to attend those committees and check them out, committee meetings, and check them out before you decide to volunteer as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Megan. That's great. And it also brings up another point, which is that some committees formally have met previously in midwinter and annual, and now that work is being done sometimes at a different schedule. Committees often are meeting more frequently if they need to via email or WebEx or however. So things are evolving as we become all virtual. Thank you for that clarifying point. So I'm going to pass it on to our next presenter for talking about how to engage and stay up to date with instruction section.
Hi, everyone. This is Karna again, and I'm going to make this very brief and just kind of give you an overview of some resources that we have found really useful to kind of gradually dip our toes in and ease into the waters here. So for some resources for staying up to date, and these are things that I kind of like because they're very passive. It doesn't require a whole lot of work on my part. So it's great when you're having a busy day, but you still want to know what's going on and stay informed. If you want to know the trends or some advice, like some advice for some active learning activities or something like that. There's also the new member and featured teaching librarian spotlight. So these are people who I think you shouldn't be afraid to kind of even reach out to if they're talking about some aspect of their work that you really admire. These are all posted to the IS blog. They're shared in the IS newsletter, which are hyperlinked here, so you'll be able to click on that after we're done here. And then they're also shared, as we were saying earlier, that they're also shared through ALA Connect. And this is just if you log into your ALA account, ALA Connect is pretty prominent there, and you'll be able to see all of these things and read about them. Additionally, for some ways to be a bit more actively engaged, if you're not on a committee, is the ALA Connect discussion pages. Here you can see a screenshot of mine, where if you log into your ALA account and you click on communities and you just go down through that list there, this is my list of my ACRL committees. And there it will have all your committees that you are involved in, and you can look to see read the latest meeting minutes, or any other information that they're sharing with folks. And there's also, I think this was mentioned earlier, also the listserv ILI. This is probably the most active listserv I subscribe to, which is great because I think that there's a great community on there. And as Megan mentioned, this is a place where you're going to see a lot of opportunities to become even more involved in the section posted. The call for committee appointments just went out, but also I was fortunate enough to become involved with the instruction section's mentoring program through this, where I was connected to a more experienced librarian across the country from me who was able to give me advice on things that I could do with my instruction and even with my research. So it was a really great opportunity. Also, there's Facebook and Twitter, which I think we all know are fairly active. So, and that's a nice way to participate even if you're not able to get on a committee or you're not currently on a committee. So any questions, or let us know, but I will turn it over to Sarah now.
Okay, great, thanks. For my part, I'm just going to talk about some of the professional support resources available on the IS website. Under the Instruction Tools and Resources tab, there are a few links that I wanted to draw your attention to. The first was pedagogy. Under the pedagogy heading, you'll see a list of resources. A couple that I find particularly helpful are the information literacy and the disciplines link. This is a guide that's maintained by the Information Literacy and the Disciplines Committee, which is an IS committee. It's a collection of links to information literacy standards from accrediting agencies and other professional organizations. So it's not just standards from within the library world, but also looking out into the disciplines and what standards exist there. Another one is a link for Primo, which again is another IS committee, the peer-reviewed instruction material online. They maintain a database of peer-reviewed instruction materials that people submit and they review and select. And they also have a link to their Site of the Month discussion, which is an interview style. It's an interview that's done with a Site of the Month, so a resource that's been selected, and somebody from the committee interviews that person who created it. Another link there is for technology, and one of the items that's interesting under technology is the 5 things you should read about, which is developed by the Instruction Section's Research and Scholarship Committee. This is a yearly publication that basically collects together different articles or interviews or podcasts or whatever type of material related to a particular instruction topic, and those are all pretty interesting. And finally, I just wanted to point out that there are archived instruction section webinars available here as well that are available for you to access and view. These are recorded sessions that I know more recently I saw some on curriculum mapping, but there are a variety of different topics that we've had webinars on that you can later access. And I will pass it back to Marjorie.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Karna. So we wanted to provide a whole lot of time for you all to ask any questions that you have. So if there are questions about anything that we talked about today or questions that we haven't covered that you would like to enter into the chat now, we'd like to reserve this space for you to really share questions, ideas, and we'll just wait for some of those to come in and spend some time answering those questions.
While we're waiting, Marjorie, this is Karna again, everyone. I thought it occurred to me while we were running through this that, especially with the listserv, it always amazes me how many opportunities come through the listserv. I saw that Jana is attending this, and Jana actually posted a call for chapters because she and a colleague produced a 6-volume book, instructional book, where it had basically lesson plans, 6 volumes of lesson plans divided by the frames. And through there she is. And through the listserv, I was able to connect with Jana and get involved with that project and not only do something really cool with my own instruction, but also get a publication out of it. So I think that there's just kind of almost little sneaky surprise ways that even the most passive way of engaging, I mean, I just was reading my emails, but how those things can turn into really great opportunities and ways to collaborate and work with folks across the country from where you are, which I think is really great about IAS.
I can answer Audrey's question. So when you go to that volunteer form, it is going to ask you some questions about your interest in volunteering and what you bring to the table. I would encourage you to take the time to thoughtfully fill that out. When the vice chair is going through the appointment system, it's so much information to consider, and we've developed some really great ways of being able to look at folks more individually and to really take into account where their interests are. But if you don't provide that information and you just say something about wanting to get involved without talking about the things that you are your strengths and what about the committees interest you, we're less likely to put you at the top of the list for appointments. We have been trying to make sure that we're getting lots of community college librarians appointed and junior college librarians appointed because we really want to see that kind of representation in the work that we're doing, especially now that we're virtual and it's a little bit easier for folks to get involved in committee work without having to make any travel commitments. So I would definitely encourage you to volunteer if you're coming from a community college or junior college orientation institution. Because you're going to see that long list of committees to volunteer for, you may be thinking, well, how am I supposed to talk about my interest in all of those committees? There is a limited amount of space, so I think talking about the ones that are of most interest to you is important, but also expressing an interest in filling in other roles is good as well. But it's really about looking at each individual volunteer, looking at where they volunteered, where there's slots open, and sometimes really great people we're not able to give them slots, or returning folks who have volunteered and served on committees before. Sometimes we kind of put them on hold for a year while we create room for new participants. My sincere hope is that as we continue to build our virtual community and enact the recommendations coming from the Building Virtual Community Task Force, that we'll see more and more opportunities for people to work together, whether it's on committee work, or we've seen some opportunities coming up to support other ACRL initiatives. We have a large number of volunteers and probably more folks than a lot of other groups who might be wanting to get something off the ground, and we want to make sure that we're collaborating outside of the section too. I hope that's helpful, but let me know if you have other questions about that.
Thank you, Megan. I just want to add also, this is Marjorie, that there was on Monday, I think, a webinar presented by the ACRL Membership Committee, division-wide, about volunteering for committees and the process for acceptance. And there was a section in there on section-specific committees as well. So I'll paste a link to that in the chat so that you can take a look at that later as well.
And I'll add that you can be appointed to an ACRL division-level committee and a section committee at the same time. When we're trying to choose between folks who might be new to volunteering for the instruction section and haven't served in a role before, I will say that in my last round, I prioritized folks that didn't have committee appointments in other ACRL sections already, in order to make sure that people who want to get involved that haven't gotten involved in any section of ACRL yet have those opportunities. That doesn't mean nobody with 2 appointments got an IAS appointment, but that was sort of a rule, a guiding principle that I used. Hi, Anna. Thanks for that question/comment. For things like online learning and instructional design, some of the committees within IS that might interest you, instruction for diverse populations, if you're thinking about the diversity of students on your campus and how you're serving them through online learning. Thank you for whoever advanced the slide stack, because I wasn't going to be able to do that off the top of my head. Instructional technologies thinks a lot about online learning and how to create materials that will support our members in doing that well. Additionally, the distance learning section is a place to look for other opportunities. Not that I want to push anybody away from volunteering for our section, but we've been trying to do more joint work with them as well. And we're co-sponsoring a program that they're doing in person, an ALA annual on accessibility and universal design in online learning. You'll also see, like, if you're not on a committee itself, you'll see opportunities to present your work or to start conversations with members through calls for proposals for things like discussion groups. Different committees might be spinning up panels to do an online program. So that's something to look out for as well. We don't have a group that's specifically focused on student and staff training and making those kinds of things, but instructional technologies, I think, would be discussing things that would be applicable to that situation as well. If you'd like, you can email Susanna Angziskin, and I'll paste her email address in the chat box, and let her know that you already filled out the form, but that you've given some more thought to your interest and would like to kind of share some additional information with her to consider an appointment. That's totally okay, and I'll let her know it's coming.
This is Marjorie again. Just one thing that I wanted to add on to Megan's response is that one of the suggestions in the ACRL division-wide webinar the other day was the more you interact with people and reach out and let them know your interest, whether it's the person who's appointing to the committee or a current committee chair or vice chair or member, the more likely they are to know and recognize you and your interest.
I would add to that as well, because I think I'm with Anna, where the first time I applied for IS committees, I didn't really, the form, I was like, oh, what do I put in here? And I mean, I definitely think I fell flat on my face with my first form filling. And as Marjorie said, then what I did was I saw that call for the mentoring program, and I became involved with that. And I really do think going through that, I was able to talk to my mentor about it and say, well, how can I get more involved? And she gave me some great tips. And so then when I went back and filled out that form, just by virtue of talking to one other person in the section, sort of like you are, or we all are today, I was able to secure an appointment the next time I applied. So I think it's always practice makes better, and the networking part really does pay off, just because it's not just like who you know, but what they know and what knowledge and wisdom they're willing to share with you.
So if you have another question, feel free to enter a question into the chat. I also encourage you, if you don't have a question, but if you have a comment, an idea, or something about the instruction section that you've gotten benefits from, you can share that in the chat as well.
Okay, can you help? Okay. Hi, Allison. So I will give you my experience, and then I'll let Megan chime in, because I'm sure she knows better than me. So the mentoring program is an IS section mentoring program that was going on, where you just virtually had a mentor over the course of an academic year. And every month we would receive a prompt from the chairs of the committee with a topic or something for us to discuss. And it became a great way for someone who had more experience than I do or did to give me some insight. And I think I got great advice on even things like time management skills, or how hard to push things in a one-shot instruction session if you're planning it with a faculty member. I mentioned the advice my mentor gave me about applying for ACRL committees. Trying to think, but it was really nice because it wasn't a massive time commitment on my part or her part. I think it was just basically maybe 4 emails a month maximum, but it was just, you got such great advice from this person, and it was a nice way to kind of move out of your zone of familiar people and meet someone new and different who could give you a slightly different angle at some of the problems that you're encountering. So you could see kind of an extra institutional viewpoint. But I'll let Megan chime in here too.
Sure. I'm a huge fan of the mentoring program. You'll see calls for volunteers towards the end of the summer, like July and August, both for mentors and mentees, and you should consider doing both. Not at the same time, but don't discount your ability to mentor. And it's intended not just for new librarians, but librarians who are looking for a guide for any part of their career. So it might be that you really want to start doing more research and you're not sure how to start doing that alongside all of your other instruction responsibilities. You can indicate that in the application form, and you'll be matched with somebody who has a rich research background and publications history. You may be thinking about transitioning into a coordinator type position or management type position and want to talk to somebody who's in that position and get some advice for making those next steps. So please don't just think of it as something for new librarians, though that's certainly a way that folks have used it before as well. I've been a mentor the last 4 or 5 years, and each year it's been a very different situation for the person who's being mentored. Many times it's people who are looking to make a big leap in their careers, either to a new position or a new type of position, and it's great to have somebody, as Karna said, outside of your institution to give you kind of a broader view of concerns, since it's easy to get bogged down in what's happening to you locally. As a follow-up to the questions about appointments, I'm going to paste into the chat a blog post that we made at the end of last year's appointment cycle that kind of runs through the numbers of how many volunteer slots there were, how many volunteers there were as well, to just give you a kind of snapshot of kind of the guiding principles behind appointments in the instruction section. I'll add that these numbers changed throughout the year as we had either people drop off committees or we created new committees, but this gives you kind of a sense of where we stood at the end of the last appointment cycle.
This is Marjorie again, and I just wanted to bring up the all virtual change again to participation in committees and other kinds of engagement opportunities. And I wanted to share with you, if you haven't seen it already, the Building Virtual Community Task Force information. The task force has been investigating ways to engage meaningfully with the section virtually. And so they produced a report from their findings from the first year of the task force, but they're still gathering feedback on a feedback form. So we would encourage you all to take a look at that and give your feedback. I'll paste the link to the information about that task force. They're really wanting to hear from all members about virtual engagement opportunities. Okay, so we're kind of nearing the end of our time together, and I want to just do a last call for any questions or comments. Again, encouraging you to follow up with us after if you want to do that via email. My email is listed on the last slide. And also just want to appreciate all of you who participated today, panelists, our special guest, and all of you members. It's great to have such an awesome turnout for this event. Want to give the opportunity for any parting comments from any? Yes, I'm reading Megan's chat right now. She's open for all questions as well, and her email address is in the chat. So thank you so much for attending today's session, and it will be available as a recording on the IS website. We'll also share it on the listserv, and I think you may receive an email as a participant afterward with a link to the recording to this presentation. Thank you so much, everyone.